and welcome to another edition of Supersized Saturdays. So, during this time period, we will be expanding upon the ideas and concepts that have been brought forth in some of our most recent videos, and also some of the comments that you've made and the ideas that you want us to really expand upon so that you can continue to move your life forward in a real and positive way. And so, one of the recent videos that we did was on the concept of New Year's resolutions. And again, we're nearing the end of the year. So many of us are starting to gear up for what we want to do, what type of transformational thing we want to do for ourselves in the new year. And as we look closer and closer to the end of the year, we start to think more and more about what is that thing that I want to accomplish. And so we then resolve, or we come up with a resolution that we are going to do this. Now, one of the things for those of you who are following us, you know that we are trying to change that mindset, change that perspective and that thought process around New Year's resolutions to New Year's revelations. So when you have a revelation, that is an inward process. That's something that you really spend time thinking about more so than acting on. And in a resolution, that is something that is finite, resolute. And so this is not as concrete when you're thinking about a revelation, and there's a lot more flexibility for you in terms of how you are measuring your success. And so you have a greater opportunity to be successful if your end goal is not so well defined and concrete. And so we're going to expand upon that today. And I'll start by telling you we're going to be talking about the three keys, the three R's to resetting your life. And before I go down that road, I want to tell you a little bit about a recent conversation I've had with a client of mine that has helped to spark this initiative in this conversation. So I have a client who recently had a child and has gotten out of the corporate business and the corporate arena. And one of the things that she wants to do is to re-enter into this corporate life. And so she's struggling with understanding what that looks like for her and redefining what that means for her. And so some of our conversation has really been around what is this new world I'm stepping into? Is it the same world that I've left? What types of things are involved in this new world that were a part of the last world that I left? And now how do I re-engage into that environment in a way that works for me? And that's a challenge for so many people who are trying to either enter into a workforce after leaving it, or trying to recreate a presence, or trying to design or develop a new brand. All of these things take time and take an effort of us to think about, what is it that I really want to do? Who am I being? And who do I want to become? So as we think more and more about that, this video, I hope, will give you an opportunity to really think in terms of how I can start the process of planning to reset my life. So when you think about resetting your life, it takes me back to a time where my friends and I growing up used to play a lot of video games. And that was back when Atari had first come out, and we were just so excited about that. Even though it was archaic when you consider what's out now, then it was, mind-blowing. And then once we moved from Atari to different gaming systems like Nintendo and Sega, they really started to become more sophisticated. And so they had these reset buttons. And so the reset button was awesome because if you were losing or you weren't happy with what was happening in the game, you could just hit that button and just really kind of start over. One thing about some of the gaming systems, as they became more and more smart, they were keeping track of all of the times you reset. And so you really weren't starting over. You were just getting an opportunity to play again, but it was keeping track of that loss or those low numbers that you had acquired in that particular game. And so that's the same way we should look at our lives. When we want to restart something in our life, it's not like we can erase the past and start over, because it still exists. Whatever we did still happened, and it often has an impact on who we are being and who we are becoming. So it's important that we realize that resetting ourselves is not a fresh start. I love this idea of just kind of starting over, that whole idea of that. It really doesn't work because we can't undo what has been done as humans. So it's important that we come to this process understanding that. But there is excitement and there is some livability, as I love to call it, in restarting, because that means we can pause where we are, think about where we've been, and move forward to what we want to be or who we want to become. And so that's what we'll talk about on today, those three R's of resetting your life. So the first R in resetting your life is reflection. In order to begin the process of knowing what you want to do or where you want to go, you've got to think back on what you've done and where you've been that has put you into the place where you are today. So if you're in that space where you say, I really want to do something different, this year is really going to be the year of whatever for you, then you want to start to reflect on why is it that you feel you even need to do this. And so one of the ideas that I would offer to you, one of the exercises, is to chart out some things that got you to this particular place. And we want to call that a mind map. And so on the page, you want to put in the middle whatever this new idea and this concept is that you want to do for yourself, whatever it is. Start a new job, re-enter into the workforce, get married, buy a new home, whatever, anything that you think you want to do for the new year. And that's a part of the whole resetting process for you. Put that into the middle of the page. And then you just want to start drawing lines out from the middle of that page of things that come to your mind, more of a stream of consciousness about that idea. And as you draw a line, and let's just use an example of buying a home, you want to say, well, why do I want to buy the home? Well, that says success to me. There's something about that breeds success. And then on top of that, it's a place of refuge for me. And then another line might be it's a sanctuary, a place of my own. And so as you start to draw these lines out, those ideas will then lead you to other ideas. And so the refuge for you, then you can ask, well, why do I need a refuge? Because right now I don't have one. And so then below that box, you might want to draw a line of needing a space of my own. And so as you draw that box, that will start to give you the process of reflection that you need to move forward. And so reflecting is really important because we've got to think about where we've been that has gotten us to a place of where we are pausing and wanting to do something different. So reflection really does that for us. And I want to make sure we don't confuse reflection with rewind, because you're not rewinding backwards and thinking about, what happened to me when I was 5 that got me to this place. We don't need to go back that far. Most recently, what has happened in the last 30, 60, 90 days that has made you say, I need to do this. There's a change that I need to make. And today is the day that I'm going to make that change. So as you reflect on that, a mind map, and you can look that up on Google. There's all kind of templates that you can use, and then there's some more explanation and instruction on how to really work with a mind map. But I would offer that to you as a great starting point for reflecting that first R in the 3 R's and 3 keys to resetting your life. The second is to rearrange priorities. So as you begin to look at that mind map, you'll see some things on there that really align with why you want to make this change and why you want to make this move or why you want to re-enter into this stage of your life. And as you think about that, you need to really focus on, what do I need to do with this information differently than I would have done before I started this process. And that's where that rearranging comes into play. So you want to look at your priorities, right? So let's say you've got a list of about 10 priorities, and then you want to look at those and say, out of these 10, this year, which are the most important and impactful to me? Which ones can I truly accomplish? And which ones have a measurability to them that I know that I can say, well, from X day to X day, I saw growth. Because if we don't see that growth, as we mentioned in one of our earlier videos, then we tend to give up. When we don't see ourselves winning, then we tend to give up. So rearranging those priorities is so critical. So if one of your priorities was to lose weight, then you want to give yourself those phased processes, as we talked about in our last video, so that you can phase those goals out. So you're not looking to lose 100 pounds in 10 days, that you're looking to lose 100 pounds over 100 days. And then you break it into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So by phase 3, you will have seen little wins along the way. And so you'll want to continue on to you get to that final goal of phase 4. So rearranging those priorities has a lot to do with those phases that we are making for ourselves, those little mini gaps, those little mini goal gaps that we have to say, okay, from this gap to this gap, there's a goal here, and I've accomplished that. From this gap to this gap, there's a goal here, and I've accomplished that. And so as you think about those goals, you also want to think about, how do I rearrange this into a way that's realistic for me? Not only realistic for me to accomplish, but also realistic for me to hold myself accountable. And so as you start to think about those priorities and you start to rearrange them, things become a little bit more clear to you about which priorities are those that you can really work on for the coming year. And you don't want to throw the other priorities out. You just want to, again, phase them. So within the first 6 months, maybe I'll do these, and then maybe the last 6 months, or even into the next new year, you can carry some goals over that you want to accomplish. And then you know that you've already had them identified, which is part of the battle. It's just really identifying what those are. And the beauty of having them all written out is that you can reassess those and determine, is this still an important goal for me? Is this still something that's really showing up for me in my life that I want to attack or that I want to really change? And so we've got rearranging those priorities as our second key and our second R. Our last and final key and our third R is to revive. One of the things that we struggle with so often in this process of changing our lives and moving ourselves forward is we get tired, we get hung up over not making those goals in a way that we were hoping to. We get stuck in a place and we feel like, oh, I've lost 10 pounds, but now I'm not seeing the weight come off, or I've made it to this part of my career, but I've been stuck in the same job now for the last 3 years and I'm not seeing opportunities come forward. And so we kind of hit that lull and we lose interest. And so we've got to find ways to revive ourselves. And so that way our goals that we've set don't lay dormant. And so it's very critical for us to find those revivals for ourselves that we can say, hey, I've got to get myself recharged so that I can keep going forward with the goal that I've got set for myself. And so the way that I would offer to you to revive yourself is to look at those priorities and first look at the ones that are accomplished, and remember to have little praise parties, little celebrations when you accomplish those things. But as a part of the revival process is to look at all of those goals that you've been able to accomplish and then have a major celebration over where you've come. Even when you are stuck, you're not where you once were. And that's so important for us to focus on, because we focus so much on what we are not seeing happen that we often forget about what has happened. So take that opportunity to look back on those goals that you have and really focus on the celebration and the successes. And so another option that I would offer to you is to create a success board where you can put up on your board all of the different things that you've accomplished. And so when you do get down, you can use Pinterest or any physical board, anything like that you have. And so when you get down and you need that revival, you need to be revived, you have those things that are pinned up on your board that remind you of the accomplishments that you have made and the things that you've succeeded in. That's so critical. So in looking back, again, we've got those three keys, those three R's, to making sure that we can successfully reset our lives. And so in order to make sure those things happen, you really need to focus on the goals that you have set for yourself, making sure that they're realistic, that you've got that accountability partner. And then as you move forward in resetting your life, you want to make sure that you're reassessing those goals that you've set for yourself throughout the next phase of the process. So I hope this has been really helpful for you all who are looking to hit that reset button. Remember, resetting does not mean that we are erasing the past. It just means that we're pausing, looking back on those things that we want to do differently or do better at or grow in, and use the past as a launching pad for the future. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful weekend, and looking forward to seeing you on our next video.